what in the world is all of this? Well, most of you won't care, but just a little note about what this is. So this stuff right here, these little curlicues of filament that's been extruded, this is called poop, which is pretty funny that that's what the technical term is for it. But this is what happens when my nozzle heats up and purges a little bit of filament to make sure that the flow is flowing at the rate that it wants. And in my entire time of printing, this is all the poop I have, which is interesting because there's no copper here. So there must be a little bit that fell out of the chute that I haven't found. But the important thing about this is that this is the #1 issue that people have had in the past with multicolor printers. Well, first of all, they were thousands of dollars, but also they only had one print head. So every time they switched, maybe they could hold more than one spool of color, but every time they switched to color, they had to purge the old filament, heat the new filament, and extract a little bit, purge a little bit to get it flowing. And so there was a tremendous waste. So whereas this is pretty much everything from everything you've seen that I've printed, 50 some items or so, I'll put a photo here of what just the amount of poop on other printers is for just this one guy. The original print that came with the machine as a sort of test benchmark. And that amount of poop is volumes more than this. So it was, a huge waste and very expensive because people were actually wasting more filament on poop than they were actually using in their models.
So I printed 2 stitches, one on the Snapmaker U1 and one on the Bambu Lab A1. This is all the wasted filament on the Snapmaker U1. And of course, this is all the wasted filament on the Bambu Lab A1. So all that wasted filament is equal to one of these.
And then let's talk about the purge waste. The purge waste for the U1 looks like this. That's it. And 4 of these files, I did 4 of these on each printer on the build plate. And when you do multiple, it helps with the value that you extract from all the purge waste. But let's look at what it looks like for the P1S. That's significant. It's just wasted. That could go towards more models or anything else. But that just adds into your cost long term for your budget. The final file that I went off and test printed for these 2 printers is the Apple Pie Turtle by Cinderwing 3D. I chose this file specifically because there is a lot of areas on here that have the 4 color changing, and that's just going to add more time, especially to the P1S, because it's 4 times per layer that it's got to retract the filament and push it back in. And the same thing for the color changing. It's got to purge that filament waste out of it. The U1 handled it like a champ. That 5-second color swap, as you just saw right there, it just kept on going. The purge waste is still noticeable, not as much as the last file, but it's still there.
I printed the same cube on the U1 as I did on the P2S. Now let's compare the two. Why are you comparing the U1 to the P2S? They're 2 different machines. Well, because I don't have the H2C yet, and the U1 and the P2S are very similarly priced. So without further ado, let's check out the results. Alright, let's check out the U1 first. The model was 14.4 grams. We'll check out the quality side by side here after. 24.75 grams for the tower, and it did have 5 grams of poops prior to prime the nozzles and get everything prepped before the print actually started. Now on to the P2S, same size model. The tower was a little bit smaller at 22 grams. The poops, however, there was a lot of them. This was also cutting this poop down by 0.5 in the flushing volumes, so I believe it was 140 instead of the 195 that it had planned for.
Now, what are these? Well, these are called purge towers. And whenever you print on this printer that can handle 4 colors, because it's got 4 print heads, it doesn't have to do as much purging. Did I say this was a purge tower? If I did, I misspoke. A lot of people call it that, but they're wrong. It's a prime tower. The only purging that happens is back here with the poop. But the priming, this little tower sits over it wherever you want it on your plate, but I have mine in the back left. And the head will come and deposit a thin layer of filament to make sure that it's flowing before it goes into your print. And so this was actually from the Dragon. The little guy that was the first one to print. And, you know, people say, well, this is waste. It's not poop, but it's waste. But the other printers that had even more of the poop also had these things, and they were wasted. And you can make these smaller and different sizes, shape-wise. Like you can see some of these are not rectangular as much. And they've got really thin walls to reduce the amount that it uses. And some people don't use these at all. But the nice thing about them is they basically prime the colors here so that there's no leftover anything that happens when they're printing on your design. So you don't have any bleeding from white to black and all of that, which other printers do. So these are just some of the prime towers that that I've created. And people wonder, what do you do with these? And some people, I think, are finding ways to melt it down and turn it into something useful, maybe more filament. I don't know. I probably don't care. But it's kind of interesting to me that that's what those are. And I have no idea why this one even printed, because it looks like it didn't even need to change colors until the very, very end. And I have no idea what print that was. Huh. Interesting. But it's just some new terminology to learn and kind of fascinating. Bye.